People come to me all the time and they say, wow, I thought that hypnosis just didn't work on me until I tried your files. It took a little bit of practice and tweaking to get there, but now it seems like I have unlocked my own formula, and the formula for your effectiveness might turn out different, but I invite you to use parts of my formula within yours. Remember, we are all here together, and I want to see people creating good content that works. Because when I first saw hypnosis content on the internet, I was completely in awe of the possibilities. It was this magical world where anything could be created. The body, the mind, working together to create anything. You could change who you are, your shape, your identity. You could change your body, your thoughts, your habits and ideas. You could experience anything erotic or therapeutic. I found these huge libraries of audio files all over the internet. But that dream kind of came crashing down, because a lot of them just didn't work. And it makes one think, is there something wrong with me? In the previous episode, I talked all about making yourself more susceptible to hypnosis and making it work for you. Today I'm going to talk about how to make hypnosis content that works. This will help you to make original content or to edit someone else's content to your own desires. Of course, you shouldn't publish someone else's content as your own, but I know plenty of people chop up hypnosis content and put it together in their own way for their own usage. Now first you're going to need the right equipment, though in my beginning I recorded on a simple gaming headset. You know, one of those little microphones that sticks out from the headphones. And no one ever complained about the audio quality. I just made sure that my mouth was the correct distance, the volume levels were good, and the backgrounds were decent, and no one complained. So just remember that it doesn't have to be perfect. After all, famous YouTuber Casey Neistat once said that it's not about the camera that you have, or the quality of it all. It's about the story that you tell and the way you communicate. The content is what matters, but it is nice to make sure that there is no background noise. You don't want noise coming from your computer, and you don't want echo or reverb on your microphone. Personally, I like to use a dynamic type microphone, which is commonly used by podcasters and such, because it cuts out a lot of that noise that is around the microphone, or distant from it, or off axis from it. It also kind of gives you that warm broadcaster sound that you're hearing right now. Now these dynamic microphones do often pick up an electrical hiss, this constant hum that comes from the frequency of the electricity in the room. And you can take that out with a simple noise cancellation. I like to hook up my microphone to a small preamp because I do not speak very loudly, and this will bump up the volume of my speech. Then that connects to an audio interface, which translates it digitally via USB to a USB port on the PC. I use a PC case from a German manufacturer called Be Quiet. They always come with quiet fans and hard drive mounts that are soft, sound deadening and all that stuff, but realistically, any modern PC case is going to be much better than we had years ago. I find that 2 large fans work fine in the PC, one intake and one exhaust, 120 millimeters or 140 millimeters, not a big deal. For the average PC, 2 case fans is fine. And with today's technology, you might not even need a hard drive, which can make all kinds of loud, random noises. And then a nice tower cooler on your CPU goes a long way to keep fan speeds down. If you're recording with a laptop, it's probably no problem. Just close out any other programs so that your fans are not ramping up. But please use a dedicated microphone. Don't just record it through the microphone on your phone or mobile device or on your laptop. Plug in some kind of microphone and it's going to be way, way better. Now, the way you speak is going to be your own individual thing, so I can't really comment on that too much. Just make sure that you are clear and you're in a good position. You might want to stand up to have a more full, dynamic voice, or you might want to sit down to be really chill. Listen back to your recording and see what it sounds like. Of course, don't be too critical, as no one really likes the sound of their own voice on recording. You can use a pop filter, a little piece of material that goes over your microphone that prevents a popping sound when you make a P sound. That's the air blowing over the microphone. But I find a good solution is to just offset the microphone to the side a little bit so that you're not blowing on it every time you make that P sound. Get the appropriate distance so that you're not breathing on the mic too much. Be mindful that you're not bumping anything, because that can make a loud sound, and it's pretty annoying when you're listening to hypnosis. Even a tiny tap on your microphone can sound quite loud for the listener. Now let's say you're not using your microphone at all. Maybe you create the voice digitally through a text-to-speech program. In practice, this kind of thing usually doesn't sound very good, but there are a number of people that do it right, and it sounds really, really good. I can't tell you the techniques that they are using, but maybe you could listen around and try and find those creators that are using that and see if they'll give you a few tips. I do know that using the traditional built-in Microsoft voices can be horrendous at worst and comical at best. But even then, some people use those voices and they tweak them a certain way and it sounds pretty good. Now, you are in luck if text-to-speech is something you use or you want to get into at the moment, because we have a lot of new AI models working on that right now. These machine learning models are working themselves out as we speak, getting better and better. They are so good that they can imitate the voices of famous people. Kind of frightening implications, but I'm sure there's plenty of made-up voices for you to use and experiment with. These voices are sounding quite good. You will have to play around with them and tweak them so that they get the right intonations and timing. You will have to work closely with it and edit the audio yourself and the timing with it so that it sounds more natural. I don't know how to use this stuff. I just know that I'm hearing it all over the web and it's getting better, so you have an opportunity there. Now, I can't explain everything that works, but let's talk about the basics of making hypnosis work. I'm talking in the audio content creation here, because it is a bit different when you are in person. And a lot of these techniques that you learn in person don't work in an audio file. They might involve checks or deepeners. Anything that involves interaction with the viewer is not possible when we are creating audio, though some of it might apply when you're doing it live to someone over the internet. The funny thing is, you see people with all of their certifications, all their training courses and such. Those things are great, but they may not provide you with the natural delivery that works best, or something that works best via audio file. Going by a script is fine and typically necessary at first, even for quite a while. But after learning a certain number of techniques, you often go beyond technique. You begin to kind of just do it. It can be a bit conversational, and people love to experience it in that way. It makes them feel that it's normal and natural, and there's no pressure on them to go into some state of trance. You kind of sneak your way in there, so to speak. So one of the best ways to go into this is to have no script, or I think even better is a basic, simple script. Kind of a list or jot notes of what you want to talk about and create. Now this is a bit advanced. I do recommend in the beginning that you literally just write out what you're going to say, or what you're going to make your program say, or whatever. This naturalness comes after you get your voice and get some practice in understanding what works. Next is what I think might be the most important thing. And if there's one thing that I'd like you to take from this entire talk, it is this: be all positive. Yes, every single thing that you say should be in a positive light. And that means literally using only positive words. For example, I will rarely ever say the word bad. I won't even go that far. I will often say not so good, or not ideal. In those situations, I'm using a negative positive. I won't even say the words let go of the stress of the day. I will just say let go of everything. You may or may not be aware of the vibration of this, but take a moment to feel into that. Feel the difference of that. Let go of your stresses. For some, that might be okay. They might say, oh, that sounds like a good, nice thing. I've had a stressful day. And for others that are already in a relaxed, good mood, they're kind of like, what? I'm not stressed. In fact, you're kind of making me stressed by assuming that I am stressed for some reason. It is so common for people to say things like this. I've heard this from people doing live hypnosis, hypnotherapy, audios of every niche and topic. It is so common, and I cannot blame you for doing it, but it does need to change. Everything that you say needs to be in a positive light. Even if I'm doing some kind of dark or evil role play, I keep everything as positive and playful as possible. so that no one experiences a bad trigger and we keep the vibe as high as possible. It is especially important to keep positivity when a subject is under hypnosis because they are susceptible, and we want only positive suggestions to go into them. Remember, this is a rewiring a brain, and positivity is what makes everything work. Even in the workplace, most experiments show that positive comments will provide you with much more benefit, better results, and better output than negative feedback. This is simply the nature of things. Good things come from good things. After all, hypnosis is just a heightened state that connects to the law of attraction. Like attracts like. You don't have to be shouting glee from the rooftops. I'm certainly no manic pixie myself. I'm pretty monotone, that's just how I talk. But my choice of always keeping it positive makes for not just an easy listening experience, but something that works, something that creates something positive in your life. I think that's pretty simple. Now on to the next thing. People have a little bit of an attention issue today. It's no surprise when you look around that our attention spans are dwindling. So let's work with that. In fact, it challenges us to be better by making our content less boring. That means capturing the listener or viewer's attention the moment that you start. Perhaps you noticed that I jumped right into this recording without a bunch of preamble, and that is pretty typical of my content. I'm kind of calling out a lot of people here when I say this, but I did not start this talk by saying, "Welcome to Jack's Hypnosis, where we help you with this and that, and we talk about all these kinds of things, and here's who I am, and here's what I do, and here's why you should listen to me, and oh, roll that 30-second intro, but not before I tell you about our sponsor, and blah, 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 and then maybe give an explanation of what hypnosis is, and then the warnings, never listen while driving, and taking medications, blah, 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 blah. And then some big, long, slow induction for 30 minutes. And I know some people don't mind that kind of thing. They like a long induction. They don't mind a nice intro. But I know that half the people out there are figuratively punching the air right now, like, yes, stop that shit. Get on with it. Just start it. The people want their content. So make your content start with the very first sentence. It's almost a pretend intro when you do it this way. And the listener does not realize that it's starting already and that they're having thoughts of it in the first sentence. You're getting it started. You're going to start off with something where the subject doesn't need to be in trance for it to work. For example, if I was going to help you become a better public speaker, I would start off my first sentence by saying, wouldn't it be nice to be clear, confident, and precise whenever you speak to people? Even if it's more than one person at a time, even if it's many people at once. Just that first sentence primes them for confidence and capability. And let's just say that person still needs a whole lot more confidence points. to get up to that level of being the perfect public speaker? Well, I just boosted them up 1 or 2 points, and they're already on their way. They've got their first stepping stones to dive in. Now they're already confident enough to go further. And they didn't have to wait for it. They didn't have to endure anything to get to that point. It's like bang, delivered right to them the second they press the button. What a VIP experience. Then you can blend the induction into the content of what the listener wants or your intentions. You could say something like, relaxation grants a sense of confidence. And that's a little hypnotic hint to go deeper. You're just nudging them down a little bit. And you do that for a little while, and then maybe after 5 or 10 minutes, you might mention how they feel a bit heavier than before. Oh, hey, maybe you notice that you're feeling heavier and more relaxed than you were a few minutes ago. That's perfectly natural and normal. There are a lot of people listening that are already feeling that. For some, it's this whoa, huge effect, and for others, it's a little hint, a little nudge. And that's all you're doing, just nudging and nudging. And then you could say something that implies that they are feeling heavy, or maybe their eyes are feeling heavy. Hey, did you notice that your eyes feel a bit heavy? And then you could say, allow your mind to take you down deeper. It's important to always keep going deeper. But you don't just say, go deeper. Because the subject kind of thinks, what does that mean? How do I do that? They get confused, and then they're like, oh, I must not be very good at going deeper. No, go deeper is a strange command in itself. So let's break down the example that I gave you. Allow your mind to take you deeper. There's a few layers to that. The first command is allow, and that in itself is enough to take you deeper, because that state of going deeper is the state of allowing. And even just that, you could expand on that word allow. You could say, let yourself drop when you drop. Let go into the ease. And let what happens happen. That's what allowing is. Let's break down the next part. Your mind. First is the word you, and that grabs the listener's attention. It's the cocktail effect. It's like hearing your name. This is directed at you, so you end up paying attention right away. Then there's the phrase, your mind, which is often subconsciously interpreted as your mine. The subject might even consciously mistake it for that, especially if you're doing this in an erotic context. And then the instruction to go deeper. But now the listener has a method. They have the how. They know that they have to allow their mind. And it will take them there. So the instruction is no longer to go deeper. It's to do what they need to do to go deeper. Oh, now it makes sense. Now you've got your viewer. Now they're going into that highly susceptible place. Now their brainwaves are slowing down. Now they're beginning to feel that bliss of trance creeping in. And it feels like they didn't have to try. And I like to avoid using numbers of deeper, like people will say 10 times deeper, 50 times deeper, because that doesn't make any sense to the listener's mind. It's just like, what does that mean? What does that feel like? How do I do that? And you start thinking like, isn't that a lot? How is that even possible? Most of us have a pretty analytical mind, and that's just not going to work for them. Basically, don't put pressure on the subject. Don't make them perform unless that's something that they want to do. Don't make them try so hard. Do as much as you can yourself to create that experience for them. And then, even when the subject is deep in a trance, give them suggestions that would probably still work even out of trance. Because then you're making them really comfortable. You're making them feel like they don't need to be in this strange magical state of mind to make this work. Let's go back to the public speaking example. Even when we think that the subject is in a deep trance right now, we are not going to jump straight into the suggestion of, you are a perfect public speaker. It's not a bad suggestion. I just like to think, what if they're not in the most deep receptive state right now? But I still want it to work. I'd like to say something that would work even without trance. Imagine you are cool, calm, and prepared for your talk. Imagine what you feel like when you know that your presentation does not need to be perfect. Imagine the relief of knowing that the fact that you did it is fantastic in itself. And when asked a question that you may not know the answer to, you are cool and confident, knowing that you don't know because you have not looked into that particular topic, or you have looked into it and could not find sufficient answers. Isn't it nice to feel the relief of being human? Now look at those string of suggestions that I just used. Those would all work outside of trance. And that's why we need to get ourselves out of the idea of induction and then suggestions that work because the subject is in trance. Yes, this state of deeper brainwave activity, this thing that we call a hypnotic trance, yes, it enhances the suggestions. But it's best to make suggestions that work regardless of whether or not the subject is in trance. This is what it means to make it natural, and this is when it works best. Hypnosis is an enhancement. It doesn't give you any ability to make magical commands. Look at how we create things as humans. We visualize it first. We visualize the ingredients of our salad before we make it. We visualize our body to create it. We imagine it, we feel it, we hear it, use the senses, we line up the emotions with it, and we think of it in as much precision as possible. That's how all things are created intentionally. Your imagination is a preview of the future. Just by thinking of something, you are drawn to it, and it is actually drawn to you in ways that we understand and in some ways that we honestly don't. Some odd, unbelievable things happen when we combine our imagination with our emotions and our intentions, and sometimes the manifestation just seems to magically appear. We don't know how, Sometimes we try to explain it. Sometimes we consciously make actions towards it, as we should. And sometimes we're thinking about it and it just sort of pops into your existence. It just sort of happens. And as humans, we don't really have the perception to understand 100% how. All we know is that we get people to conceptualize things first, and then they happen. We don't just say it's going to happen. We conceptualize what it's like. We create it in some part of our imagination, and we do some kind of action to move us into a physical space closer to it. And that's what you're encouraging. That's the next part. That is an instruction of something physical. We have mentally created what we want. We have visualized it, heard it, felt it, seen it. We have emotionalized it with as much precision as possible. And now there's this drive and motivation and magnetism towards it. And the best way to get the ball rolling towards that direction is to do something physical. If you're looking to improve someone's physical fitness, one of the instructions might be make sure that you walk every day. Or the next time you take a drink of water, stare into the water for a few moments, imagining that that water contains exactly what you need to accomplish your goal. And as you drink that water, you feel it become a part of you. The physical instruction could be anything related to the topic you're talking about. Overall, here's what makes the hypnosis usually work. A calm state of focus, an imagination scenario that makes you feel something as much as possible, and then physically doing something. This is the simple 1, 2, 3 combo. You have combined 3 concepts that work excellently together, and you have done them in that order. Because first you relax and focus, then you feel it, and then you begin doing something about it. Then we finish it off by just saying, hey, you can do it. You don't have to try to make it work. You got what it takes. Go ahead and do it. Say it in your own words. How would you tell a friend that they can do it? Now, once you're done your recording, you can do noise reduction and editing. You can put in some background audio. Find whatever fits the vibe that you're going for. You could use binaurals or brainwave entrainment. You could use certain soft music. You may have to search around for royalty-free stuff. You may have to pay for the royalties to use it if you're going to publish it. And it's not necessary to add a background track, but it can add so much depth to it. So I hope that this has helped or at least entertained you, and I'm sure you have learned plenty. You don't have to implement all of these things, and when you do, you can do it in your own way. If you can just be all positive with what you create, you are going to change the world. Honestly, that's all it takes. That is the biggest thing. Do your own thing. Keep it positive. Get out there and make some crazy stuff. I'm Jackson Stock. You can find me on YouTube, or you can go to my website, transformhypnosis.com, to listen to all kinds of self-improvement and transformation audios.